The Torah tells us he lied on that location, vayachlom, and he had a dream. V'hinei sulam mutzav arzo, there was a ladder which was standing on the ground, on the earth, Rosham Agia Shemaima, and the top of the ladder extended into the heaven, into the sky. V'hinei malachi Elokim olim v'yordim bo, and angels of Elokim, of God, were ascending and descending. So over here, the Balaturim writes, Sulam. If you notice, the word Sulam is written with the Vav deleted. Sulam. The reason why we pronounce Sulam, because there's the vowel under the Samach is called a Shuruk. That diagonal 3 dots is the equivalent of having a Vav between the Samach and the Lamed. Sulam, okay? But Sulam in its full spelling, the Balaturim writes, B'gematria kol. Kol is Sulam. So he writes, Shekol tfilas hatzadikim u'sulam al'alchim l'albusbo. That when a tzaddik prays, that is the ladder through which the malachim are able to ascend to take the tefillah up to God to be received. Then he writes, Sulam b'gematria momon. Sulam numerically is the same numerical value as momon. Momon means money. Money. What does that mean? Sulam is money. Ubegmatria oni. And also it's the gematria numerical value of oni impoverishment. It's the numerical value of mamon and impoverishment. What does this mean? Some people are elevated. The Gemara tells us in Shabbos that one's financial situation is like the wheel of fortune. A person could be at the very top of the wheel, and in one moment you spin the wheel, you're at the very bottom of the wheel. Assets in Hebrew are called nechosim. Nechosim means property, assets. One's assets, from the word, it's mechuser, it's covered, it's concealed. One moment the person has wealth, next moment the person is impoverished. You never know what's going to happen. Also, coins are called zuzim. A zuz is a coin. Why is it called zuzim? Shezozim mimokum lamokum. The word zuz means it moves from location to location. One moment, one man has the wealth. Next moment, somebody else has the wealth. Wealth is always, one's financial situation is always, there's movement, there's flux. The Chofetz Chaim writes that very rarely do you find that wealth remains in one family over an extended period of time. In Europe, time of the Chofetz Chaim, usually even within a person's lifetime, 10, 20 years was considered an extended period of time that a person had wealth. After that, the person would actually, because for whatever reason, the economy of the country, the political situation, displaced whatever was, the person wouldn't have what he had originally. It was always, Jews' financial situation was always in flux. There was always a certain lack of stability. It's zuzim. It's continuously moving from one place to another. So the Balaturim writes, Sulam numerically is momon. It's momon, and it's also oni. Oni means impoverishment, and he explains zeyashbil v'zeyorim. It raises a person and lowers a person. And he writes, Sulam also is kol. Numerically is kol, voice. So I was thinking, the bracha which Yitzhak gave to Yaakov was Hakol Kol Yaakov Yadayim de Yosef. The voice is the voice of Yaakov, and the hands are the hands of Esau. So the Midrash tells us that when the voice is the voice of Yaakov, and as the Midrash says, that if the elementary schools, you hear the chirping of Jewish children studying Torah, and you go to the base Midrash and you hear the sound of the study of Torah, the hands will not be the hands of Esav. That incapacitates the Esav. We have the upper hand, even the physical sense. But if the call is not the call of Yaakov, if you don't hear the chirping of the children studying Torah and the men studying Torah, then Hayadayim the Esav. Then the hands will be the hands of Esav. Then we have the brunt of what Esav is, the whole idea of Esav Soni Yaakov. So it's interesting. Kol, Sulam is Kol. Sulam is Momon. One's financial situation is determined by the Kol. If there's Kol, then there's what? Then there's Momon. And if there's no Kol, then we're at the bottom of the ladder and then we're crushed by the Esav. It's interesting. We read in Pirkei Avos, Im ein kemach ein Torah. We live in the physical world. You have to have physical sustenance. Im ein kemach ein Torah. That's the reason we spoke about. That's the relationship, the partnership between Yisachar and Zvulun. Yisachar was dedicated to Torah, and the provider was Zvulun. Because im ein kemach ein Torah. We live in the physical world. You have to have someone underwriting the material. So the Orach Chaim HaKodesh writes, says something beautiful. He says, Im ein kemach ein Torah. If God does not provide the kemach, that's only an indication Torah is not a proper Torah. If the Torah would be proper, appropriate Torah, God would make sure that the kemach is there. That he's not providing the kemach, Hashem, that's an indication that the Torah qualitatively is not appropriate Torah. Because if it would appropriate, he would actually bring the kemach, which is needed to underwrite that. It's interesting. If the kol is appropriate kol, then it's momo. So kol is referring to the kol of Torah, the voice of Torah. And as he says, the numerical value of kol
is 130. 130.
Is mamon.
It's 130.
Also, he says, Sulam without the Vav, and it's the deleted spelling, as we have here, is Sinai. That Yaakov was shown Maimon Har Sinai. Sulam in the deleted form is Sinai. Yaakov was shown Maimon Har Sinai, except receiving of Torah at Sinai. Again, Yaakov being the founding patriarch of the Jewish people, meaning he fathered the 12 tribes. He's the one who achieved that level of perfection that now he's able to launch the family that ultimately is going to exile, which will be redeemed after the bondage. And the objective of that redemption was what? Sinai, Kabbalah Satorah. That was the objective. When we were freed from slavery, it wasn't to just be free. The Mishnah tells us in Pirkei Avos that regarding the Luchos, in regard to the words of the 10 commandments that were etched on the tablets, the Torah says, Choros ala luchos. The spelling of Chorus is the same spelling as Cherus. Cherus means freedom. So the Mishnah tells us, Al tikrei Chorus, which means etched, Elu Cherus. Elucha ben chored elu mishosik b'talmud Torah. Who's truly the free person that you have freedom of choice? The one who studies Torah. Why? Because since we say Barasi Itzar Barasi Torah Tavlin, the Torah is the antidote to the evil inclination. We say there's an expression: a person is a slave of his desires. What dictates a person's life? His desires. What his ego dictates. Therefore, he's fully invested in his desires, but that's the Yitzhara. So what does Torah do? Torah frees us up from all these inhibitions, all these desires, all these distractions, to have a level of clarity to invest ourselves in the proper location. Therefore, since Yaakov Avinu was the founding father of the Klal Yisrael, the 12 tribes, and Yaakov is who? Yaakov is Tam Yoshev Oholim. He's the one who personifies the study of Torah. Therefore, Hashem revealed him at Sinai, and that's what he says. Sulam in the deleted form as we have it here is the same numerical value as Sinai. Hashem showed him Maimon Har Sinai, which is ultimately which is a confirmation that exactly what he is, that will be expressed and magnified through his children that can stand at Sinai and receive the Torah and meet the objective of creation. Moshe Rabbeinu gives the blessing to Yisachar and Zvulun, and he says to Zvulun, Smach Zvulun b'tzeisecha, Yisachar b'olecha. Zvulun was the seafarer. He would go out to do business, to support. Yisachar was studying. Smach Zvulun b'tzeisecha. Zvulun, when you go out, you should rejoice. When you're going out to earn money, to do the business transaction. Why? Because Yisachar b'olecha. Because since Yisachar is studying Torah in the tent of Torah, therefore the objective you're going out is the ultimate. Therefore you should rejoice. So Rav Chaim HaKodesh asks a question over there. Person embarks on a business venture, and he hopes it'll be good. But reality-wise, do you know you're coming back with a profit? You don't know. Firstly, you don't even know if you're returning. And even if you do return, once I have the deal signed, there's a basis to rejoice. And even when you have it signed, till you actually collect, it's not so simple. But yet, Moshe Rabbeinu says to Yisachar, to Zvulun, Smach Zvulun b'tzeisecha Yisachar b'olecha. When you're going out to embark on this business venture, you're ready, you should rejoice. It's like when you're buying the lottery ticket, you don't even know if you're going to win, you should rejoice. But I may not succeed. So the Rav Chaim HaKodesh says, it is known factually that if a person goes out to do for Torah and you have the right intention, guaranteed you will come back with a success. Therefore, Moshe says to them, you can already rejoice even before you go on this venture, because definitely, since that's the objective of your departure, you have a right to rejoice. Why? Because the objective is Yisachar b'olecha, to underwrite Yisachar. That's why you should rejoice. So again, we said, Sulam is Mammon. That's Mammon. And Sulam is also Kol. When the Kol is Kol Yaakov, then the Sulam is Mammon. Then you have the necessary material to support the Torah. But if you don't have the Kol is lacking, which, as the Rav Chaim HaKodesh says, Emein Kemach, that's an indication, a confirmation that it's not appropriate Torah. Because if it would be, Hashem would provide. The Mishnah tells us, Pirkei Avos, that if a person studies Torah initially in an impoverished state, ultimately he will study Torah in a wealthy state. Hashem will provide. Okay? It's a Mishnah Pirkei Avos. The person is lo b'Torah mitoch oni means in a state of poverty. Sofel luma b'toch osher. Ultimately, he'll study it in a state of wealth. So we ask the question: the poorest person, probably in the history of the Jewish people, was Rav Chanina ben Dosa. Rav Chanina ben Dosa, and which means there's a baskol that comes out of Sinai every single day that says, "Kol olam kula nis b'shul Chanina b'ni." The world is supported in the merit of Rav Chanina ben Dosa. Shedai lo b'kav charubin me'erev Shabbos and erev Shabbos. It's sufficient for him a small measure of carob from erev Shabbos to erev Shabbos. So the Maral, when we study Pirkei Avos, asks in his commentary, but if the Mishnah tells us that a person initially studies Torah mitoch oni in an impoverished state, sofa lil mitoch osher, ultimately will be wealthy. This was Rav Chanina ben Dosa's life. His whole life was this. He only had a kav charubim, this small measure of carob. Ultimately, his financial situation should have changed. It should have gotten better. Why didn't it get better? That's the Maral Prague's question in his commentary. So he answers that Rav Chanina ben Dosa didn't want it. Didn't want it. He preferred to study Torah, as they say, mean and lean. He didn't want to be challenged. Wealth is a challenge. You have it, you don't know how you can be touched with wealth, with financial success. He preferred to study it in an impoverished state rather than have the wealth. There's a Sefarno who writes, we say, Ezeu Osher Asomech V'chelko. It's interesting. A person studies Torah, very rarely do you find he has great financial wealth. Right? He may have enough, he may have a little bit more, but never. And a person enters into other areas of vocation or livelihood, he could be wealthy. It's interesting. I mean, here you're occupied and invested in what's most important, and Hashem doesn't provide in this exceptional financial material way, and the other person who invests in his physical, some level of profession, he has a greater chance of wealth, of success, financial success. Why? Now, financial success is not so simple because there's a level of distraction. Why? The Mishnah tells us in Pirkei Avos, mar b'nechosa, mar b'daigo. Right? The more you have, the more worry you have. You have to contend with many things. If you have to contend with what all of that material, it's a distraction. So if a person is invested in Torah the way he should be, it's best he should be less distracted. As we see that Hashem provided, Yaakov set up the relationship that the Zvulun should be responsible for the Yisachar, that he should not be distracted for that reason. So, but the question is, but every human being has to have a sense of success. So therefore he says, Ezeu Osher Hasamech B'Chelko. Who is the wealthy person? The wealthy person is the one who's satisfied with his lot. So therefore a person can have very little, but if he's Sameach B'Chelko, if he's satisfied with his lot, he's a wealthy man. You have people who have everything in the world. They're not satisfied. They're not content. But if you are content, that's Osher. So therefore, even though in the material sense, they're not able to do what the wealthy man does in the material sense, nevertheless, that person is truly the wealthy man because he's Sameach B'Chelko. And according to Chofetz Chaim writes, what is the meaning Sameach B'Chelko? Every person in life has a mission. At Sinai, each of us were given our chelik of Torah. We have a portion of Torah. Hashem gives you sufficient material to meet the challenges of whatever the Torah is, to be able to achieve that. So if you're sameach due to understanding that Hashem provides sufficiently to address your chelik, your portion of Torah, then you're satisfied. You know, a person gives somebody working capital, and he's given working capital to be able to deal, to address whatever deal. Person, but I'd like to do the $1 billion deal. That's not for you. You're supposed to be doing this kind of deal. For your chelik of Torah, Hashem is providing sufficiently that you're able to succeed in your mission. And if you understand that your mission is what life is all about, if that's the case, you're satisfied. Because now I have sufficient to address that without any level of distraction. Therefore, you have the best of both worlds, the physical world and the spiritual world, because this physical world is only to facilitate the success in the spiritual. V'inei Hashem nitzav olav. This ladder, Hashem is standing on top of the ladder. Kavyochel. Yaakov sees in his prophetic vision, Hashem. This Yud Kei Vav Kei. V'yomar, and he says, Ani Hashem Elokei Avram Avicho, V'Elokei Yitzchok. This is the Chazal. Although Yitzchok is still alive, Hashem is identifying himself as Elokei Yitzchok. Although the Medrash tells us that Hashem doesn't identify himself with the person as long as he's alive, Yitzchok, because he was blind and he was confined to the house, he was not subject to the Yetzer Hara, to the evil inclination. Therefore, Hashem associates his name with him, although he's alive. Because at this moment, Yitzchok is still alive. And he says, I am Hashem Elokei Avram Avicha, Elokei Yitzchok. We say in is the Ramban, we say in the parak, the chapter of Yoshev Sisei Elyon, which is a chapter in Tilim, that Malochav Yitzavoloch Lishmocha Bikoro. Hashem will give the order to his angels Lishmorcha Mikora, to protect you from all harm. Right? Pasuk in Yoshev Sisei Elyon. Hashem Yitzavoloch, right? Hashem Yitzava Malochav. He will command his angels Lishmorcha Mikora. So one needs angels to protect him. At this moment, going forward, Yaakov no longer needed angels. When it says Hashem Nitzav Olav, is the Ramban on location, Yaakov being the most special of the patriarchs, Hashem says, from now on, I will never detach myself from you. I'm always with you. Evidently here, it's even more than being the Merkava. Even though Avram was the Merkava, was the location of the Shekhinah, the equivalent of the Holy of Holies. And Yitzchak was, Yaakov was also, but even more so, that Hashem says, Hashem Nitzav Olav. He was standing there and being associated with him at this level. None of the patriarchs were at this level. From now on, Yaakov doesn't have to be protected by a malach, by an angel, because Hashem is Nitzav Olav. That's the nature. That's the level of the relationship. Okay, and he identifies himself, and therefore he says, "The land that you're lying on, because he's sleeping, to you I will give, and to your progeny." Now it's very interesting. The Gemara tells us in Shabbos that the Beis Hamikdash is called Shisio. There's a stone in the Holy of Holies. It's called Even HaShisio, the Shisia stone. It was located in the Holy of Holies, and the Aron. During the first Beis Hamikdash, we had an Aron. There was an ark, which contained the Luchos, the second set of Luchos, the broken Luchos, and the Torah. That was the Aron, which had the cherubs on top, and the Shekhinah would be between the cherubs. In the second Beis Hamikdash, there was no Aron. The Aron was hidden away at the end of the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash. But there was a stone. The location which the Aron actually rested was called the Shisia stone, Even HaShisia. That was the location with which the Akedah took place. Exactly, that's the location. Avram built the Mizbeach to bring Yitzchak as the sacrifice. That was the location of the Aron. And by Yesheni, it was called Even HaShisia. So the Gemara says, why it was called Even HaShisia? That the world is shoses mimeno. The world is sustained, all the nourishment, all the energies that go out to existence, that allow existence to function as it does, emanates from that location. So the Beis Hamikdash is the generator which generates all the energies for existence to exist. That's Even HaShisia. We said that all locations in the world have an archangel that oversee that, because the world was divided among the 70 nations of the world. So the archangel of whoever's meant to be there, that's the intermediary between Hashem and that nation. Eretz Yisrael is called Eretz HaKadosha. There's no archangel that oversees it. There's a direct relationship between Hashem and us. Because of that, we say that Kol Ador B'chutz La'aretz Ke'en Lo Eloka. This is the Ramban. That if you live outside Eretz Yisrael, it's like you have no God. What does that mean? That if a Jew lives outside Eretz Yisrael, all the sustenance that comes to that location goes through the intermediary, which is this angel, because it's the archangel of that location. Eretz Yisrael has no archangel. When you receive, whatever sustenance you receive at any level, it comes directly from Hashem. Therefore, going outside of Eretz Yisrael, it's Elo Eloka, because there's this not direct connection between Hashem. Yaakov Avinu, he says, the land that you lie on is yours and your progeny. We just had the Mishnah in Nedarim, cites a pasuk in Yeshaya, in Lo Brisi Yom V'Lo Lo Chuks Shemaim V'Ortz Lo Samti. If not for the Torah being in effect continuously day and night, the world wouldn't exist. So the Rav Chaim Volozhiner in Nefesh HaChaim, the Chofetz Chaim cites it from a Zohar, that if there should be a moment, any moment in time where Torah is not studied, the Torah would revert back to pre-existence. So what, and that's what it means. Lo brisi yom v'lo, if not for my covenant, which is referring to the Torah, which is in effect continuously, the world would cease to exist. It would revert back to pre-existence. That's what it is. Akol kol Yaakov. You have to, existence is dependent upon the Jewish people. That's the objective. Bereshis bar Elokim. Not only is it's the acceptance of Torah at Sinai, It's the study of Torah. The moment you actually detach that, it goes back to pre-existence. Because the objective of existence, you have to have minimally Torah studied every moment, even by one individual. And that's the reason why Rav Chaim Volozhiner, when he established the Volozhiner Yeshiva, there were a rotation 24 hours a day, three groups of students, always a minyan, always study Torah for this reason. To guarantee the existence of existence, that Torah being the basis, which generates all the energies, which allows existence to exist. That's the reason why he set up this type of rotation system. Yaakov is what? Yaakov is Sham Yeshiva Olim. Yaakov is the Kol Yaakov. We said Sulam, Gematria, numerically is Kol. When you have the Sulam, and Sulam is also, he says, is Momon, money, material. That's what Sulam is. So Kol is Torah, Sulam is monetary, is material. If the Kol's there, then it's all yours. The land which you lie on, which is Eretz Yisrael, all sustenance that goes out to the world comes from Eretz Yisrael. Because that's Eretz HaKadosha. It's yours because you are that patriarch who personifies Torah. And you are the one who fathered the Jewish people, which ultimately will stand at Sinai. Therefore, it's yours and it's your progeny for that reason.